to Jonathan Taylor. Huge hole. He's at the 30. He's going to go. 10, 5, touchdown. Jonathan Taylor made a man miss the line of scrimmage and then runs it into pay dirt in a one-handed INT. Are you kidding me? Kenny Moore.
What a play by Nyheim Hines.
Horseshoe is back, baby. The horseshoe is back.
What is going on, Colts Nation? Welcome back to Bring the Juice. Your Colts needs all here. Cody Felger here. Stephen Burton again joining me. Stephen, crazy man, week 1 of training camp is finally coming on. It's crazy. It's already happening. Going in now to week number 2. There's been a lot of craziness, it seems, around the Colts here in only 1 week, man.
Yeah, it's up and down. Happy football's back. You know, me and Zach have talked about it, trying to put a damper. But, yeah, there's been so much. I mean, you start off with Frank, you know, going into COVID protocol, not being there this week. And then, obviously, you kind of bookend and you end the week with Carson getting hurt and no one really knowing much of anything with that, and the media just kind of running rampant. Our boy Lawrence settling them down today, which I loved. So, I mean, I'm still excited. There's still a lot of young talent. I've been excited to see how Eason plays because it's just such an unknown. But, I mean, I'm still excited. You know, football's back. You know, we're still 6 weeks from the start of the season, you guys. So, I mean, it's not going to put a damper too much on it.
Yeah, and then everybody's just everywhere with the Carson Wentz injury. I mean, you have people who are saying he's going to be back next week to people who are saying he's going to miss the entire season. So, like Lawrence said, nobody really knows right now. I don't even know if Carson fully knows right now. I mean, he's going to test it out, right? He's going to see. Man, I wanted to talk about some guys from this week, though, transitioning here. Talking about some guys who had different stocks up and different stocks down. So, guys, off of 1 week, and again, to clarify, this is only off of 1 week. This can very much change because, like you mentioned, Stephen, there's still about 6 weeks till the season kicks off. So a lot can change, obviously, between that time. But this is just some guys that we noticed from week number 1 whose stocks are up right now and a few guys whose stocks are down right now. So let's start with the positives, okay? Let's talk about a few guys whose stocks are really up. I would say Marlon Mack for sure because, I mean, we could throw Jonathan Taylor in there. We already know what Jonathan Taylor is at this point. With Marlon Mack, there was some questions, Stephen, especially off that Achilles injury. Some people were very firmly against re-signing Marlon Mack because they said, man, running backs after Achilles are just not the same, right? And it's been great, man. I was out at camp the other day, and Marlon Mack looks absolutely phenomenal. And you just miss the little things that Marlon Mack does when you missed it last year. And he's just going to provide such a unique skill set to this running back room. So I think right now, stock's up on him. He looks fully 100% and ready to go, man.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, it's interesting to see, you know, there was a lot of worry because it's an Achilles, you know, and that tends to be almost a running back killer. He's looked good. And yeah, I mean, you do miss it because he runs differently from Taylor. Mm-hmm. You know, he's a very patient runner. He's got that little, you know, he's got that quick jump cut and then he's gone. I mean, he knows the reads. I've said all along, I think he's going to more supplement the role of Jordan Wilkins because I think Jordan Wilkins is going to be gone by the end of training camp. I mean, I'm happy to see it because if for some reason Taylor starts out slow, Mack looks like he's going to be in a good groove. We're not going to overwork him because we have Taylor, but you know, you have in your back pocket a 1,000-yard rusher from 2 years ago, and he looks to be fresh. He looks good.
Yeah. He does. And the good thing with both these guys now being, you know, fully healthy and hopefully, you know, full goes for the season with now adding another game, it's just going to help durability down the line, right? Going down when you're in week 16, 17, you're not as bad at running back because now you have two guys who have been over 1,000 yards and two guys who have been very productive with this team. And you feel very confident with your running back room, which is great. And so another guy staying with the offense who struggled with injuries, had that injury last year, week 2 against the Vikings, Paris Campbell. He has been so screwed over with injuries the first couple of years, Stephen. The last year to no fault of his own. It was just a clean, hard hit, and he goes out, and he's out for the year. You know, 99% of guys aren't going to get up from that. So I don't fault Paris Campbell for that. It was just kind of a freak thing for him. but he's looked really, really good. He looks really good. He's got the speed, obviously, we know, and he continues to improve in his route running, and I'm excited. Seems like every year Paris Campbell's tearing it up in camp. He's doing it again this year, and if he can stay healthy, man, I've said this before, if Paris Campbell can stay healthy, he's going to be a problem for defenses. Like, he is honestly the Colts' secret weapon. He's so fast, and he's not small either. Like, you think of a fast guy like DeMichael Harris. He's like, 5'9", 5'10". Paris Campbell's a good 6 foot 210. Like, he's a bigger guy, too, for as fast as he is. And it's great to see Paris Campbell fully healthy. Now, hopefully the number change can kind of give him a fresh start this season. And hopefully he can stay relatively healthy throughout the season. He can be a massive part of what the Colts offense wants to do this year.
Yeah, I'm so much lockstep in agreement. Like, everyone who listens to our show knows, like, I love Paris Campbell. I've picked him for 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns this year. Like, he's my if it's not Carson, that gets comeback player of the year, he's my pick for the Colts. I think he's going to be just electric. The number one looks great. You got to be fast to wear that number. And man, I mean, he looks good in it. Mm-hmm. I mean, he looks fast. He looks quick. Everything that you want to see. And I'm with you too. I mean, I've never held it against him. Last year was a fluke. And really, if you want to go back to his rookie season, I mean, he broke a hand and he broke a foot. And the foot's what put him out for the year. I can't remember. Okay, so I say this as we're dealing with a foot injury to our starting quarterback. But how many players do you see break a foot and that's what puts them down? Very fluky injuries in my opinion. If he gets hurt again this year, it's at that point it's a different kind of conversation. Then it is he injury prone? But I mean, I think he looks so good and he is fast. My big thing has been just no more wide receiver reverses. Just get him the ball, like, give him a little dump, like a wide receiver, dump out, something like that. But let's just be a little careful with him going around the edges, because I think he's one of those guys too that Carson's gonna be able to check down to him or just pitch the ball up and just throw it deep, and you're not going to overthrow him, So he's probably the player I'm most excited about on the offensive side of the ball this year.
He is definitely an electric player when healthy. It's just the problem is we haven't seen him fully, and it's been a major bummer. But I think this year, he's definitely primed for a big year. Obviously, if Carson Wentz does come back and is there for most of the season, I think it's going to be a really nice connection there. Let's continue with the wide receivers. Let's talk about second-year pro Michael Pittman. He has been absolutely on fire this camp. He had a couple touchdowns yesterday or a couple days ago whenever this podcast goes out. He is really looking like he's turning the corner for a wide receiver. He was pretty good his rookie season, but I feel like there were some underwhelming things with Michael Pittman. And I don't know if it was his fault or if it was just the scheme's fault or the quarterback's fault, but I just felt like he was grossly underused in the red zone. He was grossly underused. He only had 1 touchdown in his rookie season. And I felt like he's a guy that has double-digit touchdown potential with his size and his speed to complement him. And he's looked really, really good in camp so far.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, me and Zach talk about it too, is that the biggest part of his game that I think we looked at him coming out of the draft was his jump ball potential, his red zone potential. And we really didn't see that. I don't know if it was a game plan thing, a Sirianni thing, or if it was a Rivers thing, but we just didn't see that. So I'm really excited to hopefully see that this year. I mean, you pointed out his 1 touchdown was a catch and run. I mean, it was a beautiful play, but it wasn't what we thought we were going to be getting. I think he looks, and when you see him now too, he's got more of an NFL body to him. He seems like he's ready to kind of take on this wear and tear of the season. And let's be honest too, like we were joking off air, he's got a little bit of an edge to him. Obviously, he won round 1 of the first fight of training camp. He put someone down, and it was, from what the reports I read, it wasn't even close. But I mean, in an ideal world, he is your number 1 by the end of this season. He moves into the wide receiver number 1 role. Ty moves to 2, and then if and when Ty leaves, ideally, obviously, Paris Campbell moves into that 2 role is what you want. But focusing on Pittman, ideally, you want to see him take that next step and kind of step into that role of a number 1 receiver. And as of right now, he looks primed, man. He does.
Mm-hmm. He really does. I'm so excited to see his sophomore campaign and how he really breaks out. Some people have sophomore slumps. I don't feel like it's going to be like that for Michael Pittman. I feel like he's going to take a leap in year number 2. I'm really excited to see him and the ways that the Colts can use him this year. Hopefully, like you mentioned, they use him a little bit more in those 50-50 jump ball situations because he was very good at USC in those situations. I mean, he mossed some dudes at USC. So hopefully the Colts use him there and in different ways this year to get the ball in his hands and just let him do some work like we saw last year, especially in that Buffalo game. He was absolutely phenomenal in that playoff game. So hopefully the Colts continue to, feed him the ball, get him more touches, get him more looks. I'm excited to see how they do that. All right, staying on the offense, let's talk about the tight ends because I feel like all the tight ends are worthy of talking about stocks being up. I mean, Jack Doyle's been absolutely awesome in camp. I mean, everybody likes to say all the things that Jack Doyle can't do, but what he can do is invaluable. I feel like he's so good. He's such a well-rounded player. He's such a well-respected guy in the locker room. He just does a little bit of everything for you. Mo Alley-Cox, obviously the physical freak of the group. He's very much should be used, in my opinion, more in the red zone this year. He's been really good in camp beyond that first kind of day where the offense was just struggling in general, right, to try to figure each other out. But beyond that, these tight ends have looked good. And then obviously Kylan Granson has looked really, really good as a rookie. I mean, my goodness, this guy had his first touchdown on Saturday, I'm sorry. And he is just offers so much of a unique skill set to this tight end room, man. I mean, it's so great to see Kylan Granson and just him really hitting the ground running in this Colts offense, regardless of who the quarterback is.
I'm with you. I think of the bunch, I'm most excited about Granson. Mainly, I mean, he's a weapon. For Carson, if Carson comes back healthy, he's that Zach Ertz type player with, in my opinion, probably more mobility, a little bit more twitch to him. I think the knock on him with his drops and things like that was kind of overblown. It was one game in college that he had that was really, really bad. But outside of that, he was really productive. Plus, man, I know you guys have had him on here. I know I've had a chance of media availability. Dude, he's such a cool guy too, man. Like, he's so nice, so energetic, and so happy to be in the NFL. I want him to do well. I love Big Mo. I also love him. I think it's easy for people who bash on him and say kind of what you said with Doyle, say what he can't do. It's very easy to forget that, 4 years ago, he wasn't even playing football. He hadn't played a down until he got to the NFL. He had to completely learn how to get into sets, how to get, put his hand in the dirt, how to block, how to run routes. And he's finally kind of doing that. Plus, I'm with you too. Get him the ball. I don't know anybody who's going to want to try to tackle that behemoth of a man. And then like you said, there's Doyle. Doyle is just very reliable. I know a lot of people will say, like, I put it out there. I thought he could be a cut at the end of camp, more numbers wise, according to the tight ends. But he's so reliable. He's not going to stretch the field, but he's going to catch almost everything you throw in his vicinity. So they've looked really good. The offense in general has looked really good this first week in training camp.
I would say more so these guys because, I mean, we'll get to it in a minute, but, there's been some struggles other places. I feel like the defense has really won the camp so far in week number 1, in my opinion, but we're not talking about units. We're talking about players here. All right, let's continue on. Speaking of the defense, let's talk about these young defensive ends. Kamoko Toure, Ben Banagoo, and Kwity Paye all have looked really, really good in week 1 of camp.
Yeah, I mean, I can only agree. Kamoko has looked really good. I think he's looked like he's getting that step back, like he might actually finally have it back. Maybe he's finally fully healthy. We've talked about before that he wasn't, he was not healthy last season at all. Even when he came back, he wasn't ready. The ankle injury was apparently way worse than I think any of us thought, even as bad as it looked. But he seems to have it. I mean, of them, Quity's looked amazing. I'm so excited to see him play, actually get into the action. He's looked every bit of what you would hope he would be. But, I'd be remiss if I didn't say that the one that surprises me the most that's on this list is Ben Banagoo has looked amazing. He's literally looked like he has taken everything from last season that he did poorly, and he's let it motivate him in a different way, which I was unsure of. Obviously my co-host Zach has gone on record numerous times that he does not think he's a Colt after training camp. He thinks he's a cut. But he has looked great. I mean, he is the biggest surprise to me. I'm happy about the other two. I'm excited about Kwity, but the way Banagoo has looked it's nothing but kind of just astounding me.
Mm-hmm. No, obviously, there's a lot of weeks to go. So these are just really early, but initial reactions, this is a super positive step for these defensive ends because we've had questions about the edge rusher, right? We've asked, okay, do you bring back Justin Houston? Because you just don't know if there's going to be a guy that comes out right away and is just absolutely a stud. And obviously, we still don't know that, but it's certainly a very positive and encouraging thing to hear that some of these guys are looking pretty good here early on in camp. And you mentioned Banagoo. For all the we've talked, I feel like he's been on every list of guys that need to step it up or every negative thing. Let's talk a little bit positive about Banagoo, man, because I feel like his name has been kind of drugged through the mud a little bit by different people. Now, hopefully he doesn't think we have, because I don't think we have. I think we've been just pretty objective about it, but I feel like I just want to take some time to give him some credit where credit is due, man. He, came in last year, obviously was an ideal situation for him, and he wants to forget about it. And everybody criticized him for that press conference that he had, man. And everybody was like, man, I don't like that, blah, 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 blah. And then he's come in and he's just looked great. And so, you know what? Like, he doesn't have to say all the things that Tyquan Lewis said last year. He doesn't have to do the same exact thing. He just has to produce, and it speaks on the field more than it does in a press conference. And so I was kind of like, I was fine with what he said personally, because I was like, if he comes out and produces, who cares, man? And he's certainly done that so far. So Ben Banagoo, I don't know if you listen to this podcast. We had you on a couple seasons ago. If you ever thought we didn't like you, that is not true at all, because we were rooting for you, man. We really were. We just weren't sure where you were at. And so giving props where it's due, and we're really excited for you, man. Hopefully you continue to kill it, because it's super exciting.
I was just going to so the opinions of Zach and from No Horsing Around podcast are not reflective of Bring the Juice.
No, and we all have our opinions are all our own, and so.
Well, I'm with you though. I very much would love to see him. I want to see him. I don't want a wasted pick. I want to see him kind of take that step, take that leap. And I think it's a very small thing that doesn't get talked about a lot. I know there was reported he spent a lot of the offseason working with DeForest Buckner out in Vegas, out at UNLV. He spent a lot of time out there with DeForest Buckner. So I think, who knows, man? I mean, I got to keep it going, but I'm okay with it so far. Yeah,
absolutely. And the margin for error for these guys, especially Banagoo, is very small. So he has to come out and he has to continue to kill it, just like Tyquan Lewis did last year. I feel like this was similar conversations that we were having last year about Tyquan Lewis. We said straight up, like, if Tyquan doesn't have a good camp, he might be cut. And he didn't see the field a whole lot because of, practice. It was kind of crazy how eerily similar it sounded from the coaches, from Tyquan Lewis to Ben Banagoo a year later. And so I'm so excited for him, man, because I feel like he's motivated. He's ready to go. He's got a good head, and he's ready to roll. And I'm excited for that, especially because, like you mentioned, he's the second-round pick that we have the most questions about right now from 2019. There are some questions, obviously, about Rock and about Paris, but I feel like Banagoo, he's seen the field the least amount. And so we just didn't know a whole lot about him. And so the fact that he's continuing to work and get better, there's nothing else you could ask for, man. I'm really excited for him. All right, we've talked about the defensive ends to death now. Let's move on. Talk about another guy from that 2019 draft, Bobby Okariki. I mean, he has been, for me, the highlight of camp, Steven. He has been everywhere. Darius Leonard obviously hasn't been in camp yet. He had that surgery in June. So Bobby Okariki was really the only veteran guy that's seen some time that's out there right now. And he has been filling that Mike linebacker role so well. He's been around the ball. He's been making plays. And Steven, honestly, if there was a knock on Okariki, it was probably that you felt like you wanted to see a few more splash plays from him, right? We all know what Darius Leonard does and how he forces turnovers. You're like, I would like to see just a little bit more from Okariki in that department. And so far, he's been all around the ball. He's made interceptions. He's forced fumbles. He's done just about everything for this Colts defense. And so that's super exciting to see him now potentially take a leap here near number 3, because I feel like he has a lot of talent. Obviously, Pat McAfee feels like he has a lot of talent to basically call him a future Hall of Famer. What are your thoughts on Bobby Okariki? We'll throw EJ Speed in there as well, because I feel like he's had a really good camp so far too.
Well, I think that they've had a chance to really shine because, like you said, Leonard's not playing yet. Leonard's not on the field, so he's kind of getting the spotlight on him. He's looked great, and they've pumped him up. They've talked about him quite a bit Irsay talked about him. Wright talked about him. He has there's a reason why you let Anthony Walker walk. There's a reason why he left in the offseason, because Okariki was going to get the lion's share of the snaps. He looked great last year. He's looked great so far. I think the joke when you talk about the splash plays is that he is Jacob Eason's favorite target at this point in camp, because he's just everywhere. And I've talked to people who don't know who he is, and it's one of these conversations for me that is similar to when Darius Leonard broke in his rookie year, which was, this guy's going to be really good. You just got to watch. Mm-hmm. And, as the season progresses, I think his name is going to become much more well-known. I'm not going to go Pat McAfee far and say future Hall of Famer, but I mean, he's a Pro Bowler. He's very much in the talk for being a Pro Bowler if he plays the way that he's expected to play. Because the way that the system works for the Colts and the defense works, he's going to get tackles. He's going to they're going to put him in position to make those splash plays. Mm-hmm. I mean, he made a couple last year. I mean, it's hard to forget the one where he had the club on his hand and still made the interception. We just want to see more of that. And he's looked great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you mentioned he's been pretty good so far with the Colts, but I think I know myself and Derek were really expecting a bigger leap from him last year. Not that he didn't take a leap. I'm sure he did. But the amount of a leap, like a Corey Willis type of leap, is what we were kind of expecting for Okariki. I don't think he quite got there. And so I feel like this potentially could be his year where he takes the next step and really cements himself, as you mentioned, maybe a Pro Bowl conversation type of linebacker. And if he can, man, the sky's the limit for Okariki. I really believe that. Yeah. All right.
And it never hurts being next to Darius Leonard.
No, it does not. No, it does not. It's kind of the Leonard effect, and then you got the Nelson effect on the offensive line.
It never hurts.
Yes. No, it does not. Not at all. All right, let's move on to the stock down. Now, the stock down, there's a few less guys. There's only a couple guys of note. You could probably throw all the guys, honestly, that are either out injured or also out due to COVID concerns and stuff like that. You could probably put them all on the list, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to talk about a few different guys here. The first one has to be Carson Wentz. I mean, that injury just sucks, man. To no fault of his own, right? It's just right. A sucky injury, and that the fact that he's probably not going to see any preseason action, which is a real bummer, because you really felt like he could have really benefited from that with just continuing to build on that time and chemistry with his wide receivers and his tight ends. So that obviously sucks. And then I think Jacob Eason right now, even though I believe his stock's not going to be down for long, first week was kind of rough for Jacob Eason.
Yeah, I mean, starting with Carson, I mean, we've all kind of had our moments as Colts fans, and especially as Colts content creators, of putting stuff out there in the last couple of days, kind of our opinion on how it's been a wildfire and no one really knows anything. And it does stink. It does suck that we're not. I mean, I'm okay if he's out for the preseason. If he's back for week one, but it does suck that he's not going to get those reps, and we're not going to see him kind of in any kind of preseason action. But like you said too, it's not his fault. It's so weird and wompy. I want to know more. I'm excited to probably find out more. But yeah, I mean, you got to put stock down because he's not getting the reps with his teammates. Thank God the only saving grace for me, one is that he's probably not out for the year. He's probably only out for the preseason. But two, he took initiative in the offseason, and he really did a lot of throwing with pretty much all the skill players. I mean, down to Michael Strawn, all the way to TY. I mean, he did multiple throwing sessions all over the summer break. So that's a one saving grace. With Eason, I'm a little different. I do have a stock down, but I'm with you. I don't think it stays down for long. I think it's really easy to forget. Dude threw the ball, I think Kevin Bowen said, like 32 times in camp last year, and then he was inactive basically all season. So suddenly one day, you're the starter now. You're going to get all the starter reps. He's not used to that. I think the concerning factor, though, is what I hear is you're seeing a lot of the things that were on his scouting report coming out of college that he's still doing. But, I mean, we'll see. I mean, he's still – Carson, from everything I've read and everything I've seen, is that Carson is still the guy. It's not like, there's this battle going on between them, or if they want to see what – I mean, I want to see what Eason does. I have a question for you to kind of go off topic, but the same is kind of what stinks more, not seeing Carson in the preseason this year or having COVID wipe it out and not being able to see Eason last year?
I mean, obviously, that's tough. Yeah. That's a really good question.
It's a good one, right?
I was like, oh, that's easy. Wait, maybe not. I mean, I think I got to go with Wentz, though. I do. It just sucks because, like, you just want him to be able to have that chemistry. So I feel like that obviously sucks because with Eason, he's more the backup, right? He wasn't going to see any game action last year. With Wentz, it's like he's going to be your starter. So you want him to get more time and more chemistry built with these wide receivers and with these skill players. So I'd probably go Wentz if I'm going anything. But one thing I thought you brought up a really good point, Steven, about just Jacob Eason. I mean, essentially, he's still kind of a rookie, right? Yeah. He hasn't seen any game action at all. He's got 32 snaps before training camp under his belt or something like that. That's crazy, man. And to come in and expect him to just light it up, especially when wasn't supposed to be going against the ones. I'm not shocked at all that he's struggling. I'm not, because he's still a very raw prospect. You just haven't seen him. He just needs to work the rust out. He just needs to grow. He needs to develop, as all quarterbacks do. And so I'm not as concerned as maybe some people are. I feel like people are just running with how bad Jacob Eason is and all this stuff. And I'm just like, guys, what did you expect? This is week 1, essentially, of his rookie season. Like, give him some time to develop. Give him some time to learn things, right? And so I'm not really that concerned about Jacob Eason, even though I would say based off his performance, people will stock down right now. I don't think it's going to be down for long. I think he's so talented. He's going to learn and he's going to grow. And, if it comes down to in 6 weeks, Carson Wentz is still going to miss a game or two, I feel like Jacob Eason's going to be a lot better than he was in week number 1. So I'm not really that concerned personally.
Yeah, and it sounds to me, too, kind of reading the things, is that seems to be the way the Colts feel, too, is that they feel like that he can probably hold it down for a couple of weeks, that they're going to see how he looks if Carson's not going to be able to go, if Carson's not going to be able to start the season. I mean, I'm with you, too, when it comes to him. He not only was he not expected to be playing with the ones, there's no way he was expecting to play against the ones, which odds, if we get the pass rush going like we talked about earlier, if that's the thing you're talking about, he's going against the top 5 defense with just some really, really good players, and he's never even played. So right. I mean, I give him, I'm not going to say a pass, but I give him grace. So I mean that's I feel the same way as you do with the 2 quarterbacks. Yeah,
I'll be more intrigued in a couple of weeks when Carolina comes to town how he plays against them. I'll probably be able to pass a little bit more of a concrete judgment on Jacob Eason, not week 1 of training camp.
I mean, I laugh. Who knows, man? Who knows? Maybe Carson is back by then. Nobody knows anything. He could also have no foot by then, according to the national media.
Of course, some crazy fans that are just coming up with crazy theories. Some PTS-ridden fans. I'll just say that.
Yes. That's it. I mean, and like I joked earlier, big shout out to Lawrence, man. I even sent him a message. I was like, dude, I loved your rant. It was so needed.
It was so needed because, it's just like when you think something and you're in your mind like the Colts are lying to me, that's just kind of silly in my opinion, because everybody thinks the Colts lied about Andrew Luck. They didn't lie about Andrew Luck. Just stop with that stupid narrative. They did not know. Andrew Luck didn't even really know. It was just – what were the Colts supposed to do, I guess? And they were all surprised. Everybody was surprised, including Chris Ballard. So just give them grace there, guys. Like, the doctors are paid to do this. And like Lawrence said in his rant, not to steal from him, but what did they do right when they found out? They took him to a specialist to figure out to get a second opinion, right? They did exactly what they needed to do.
The most, and I know we don't want to go on a rant with this. The most interesting thing, and it's more like me doing like the dive into the message from Schefter, is I don't know if it sounded like they necessarily even looked at it serious enough to take him. It sounded like they sent the scans to this doctor for him to review the scans, and then barring how he kind of contending how he viewed the scans, then Carson might go. So Lawrence said it best in he's like, he reviewed like what the reporter said and then what the Colts never said, which was they never brought up surgery. They never brought up a major injury. It's just kind of like wildfire. And it's simply because there's nothing else to talk about.
You have to blow something up, right? There can never be a calm offseason for Colts fans. That's just always
Schefter put the tweet out where he listed everything too.
Yeah. But anyway, we're off on a tangent. Let's continue looking at some guys who potentially had stock down this week. let's talk about the left tackles for a second. I felt like Tevin and Will Holden, they weren't completely awful, but I felt like it wasn't the greatest week for them. I mean, and maybe this is more of a credit to Kwity Paye and these defensive ends, but they were absolutely whipping them all week. I mean, they absolutely were whipping that whoever was in left tackle. Tevin and Holden were obviously going back and forth. Like, I think Holden was the first couple days, then Tevin was the next couple days. They were rotating in there. And honestly, both these guys struggled a little bit against these defensive ends. So I don't know, Steven, how concerning that is for you about the left tackle position, about both these guys kind of having a rough week one. Where do you stand on both these guys for left tackle?
So I'd probably go, in the middle a little bit, not too concerned but at the same time, there's still a level of concern because we don't really know what to expect from either one of these players, into the regular season. So we were unsure of how they were going to look anyway. But I think there are a lot of factors, like you said, the DNs have looked great. Quity's looked great. Kamoko's looked great. Banagoo's looked great. And then on top of it, too, you do have essentially a rookie quarterback in there who's not used to the pressures, not used to what he needs to call, not used to how to roll the protections, things like that. And also one who coming out of the draft was known to be kind of a bit of a statue, more of a pocket passer than what Wentz was. So, I mean, I think there's some factors with that too. And obviously we do know that the O-line, when they kind of have to know who they are protecting essentially, because the game plan is different. Each quarterback is different. Carson's more mobile. Everyone saw the highlight of him rolling out and hitting Pascal for 45 yards. Eason's not doing that. Eason might take the sack. So there's a level of concern. I'm not going to say that it's super high. It's kind of where it was before camp, which is just there is concern because we won't have our true starting left tackle until, in my opinion, until like week 4. Zach feels like it's going to be like week 2, somewhere around there, week 2 or 3. But yeah, there's always a level of concern when your quarterback's getting hit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I'm interested to see what they do at left tackle because it's still wide open, in my opinion, for who's going to take it. So hopefully one of these guys has a better week 2. But right now, I think both these guys' stock's kind of down. Nobody really separated themselves at left tackle in week number 1. All right, let's continue to move on. Let's talk about the last stock down. And I'm sorry we have to do this, but Rocky Sin's on this list. And that's a real bummer, man. I feel like and obviously this is still very early, like we say with all these. This could very much change next week. But I felt like Rock had kind of an up and down week in camp. It seemed like about every time Rock was the one getting beat at corner. And he got a lot more run because of all the guys out, with COVID, with Xavier Rhodes and TJ Carey both out. So him and guys like Marvell Tell got more of a run at corner. And I felt like it wasn't a great week for Rocky Sin. What were your thoughts overall for him in week number 1?
Yeah, I'm the same way. I hate saying it because, the ongoing theme on our show, too, is that I'm a big Rock fan. Zach is not. I have made a bet with him that if Rock plays as a starter all season, I'm going to buy him a Rock jersey because he won't want to wear it. But I don't know, man. I mean, yeah, he got beat. It's compounded, too, because Marvell Tell, we didn't list him, but Marvell Tell looked good, too. So you've got him looking good. He did get a ton of snaps. I mean, we left out. Kenny Moore was out at least I think one or 2 practices too.
Yep.
With kind of a little bit of lingering injury. But not only did Rock get beat for plays, Rock got beat too on plays that like Eason overthrew Hilton, by like 10 yards, and it would have been a 50-yard gain. He's not looked great. And the interesting part for me, the worry comes in for me is that it's not what I expected for him to be doing poorly. I'm always worried about his hands. I'm always worried about him being really handsy with the wide receivers. And I think he's trying not to be, and that's allowing them to just blow by him because he's getting beat, at a clip that he hasn't gotten beat since he's been in the pros. Now, granted, some of that is because he grabs them. I mean, it's a worry for me because I think, like we said earlier, I don't want to waste a pick. He was a high pick. I think he has – I've heard Derek talk about it on here too. I think he has gobs of potential. I think he can be really talented, really good. But, yeah, it's not a good start. It's not a good – and it's Eason who's beating him over the top. That's not a good look.
Right, for sure. All right. Well, I think that'll do it for our look at some guys stock up and stock down. Week 1, still very early, like I mentioned earlier, but that's kind of our thoughts overall. Let us know what you guys think. Is there anybody that you would include on the stock up or stock down list? Is there anybody that maybe we have on the list that you don't agree with? Let us know in the comments below. Thank you, Stephen, for coming on. And guys, go subscribe to No Hosting Around. I mean, my goodness, they do such great content over there. Go subscribe to them as well. Let's get into a couple. I think you're at like 150 or so right now.
So a little over 160 as of today. So
okay.
we took a little bit of advice from you guys, and we've dropped some shorter videos, and it's kind of for some. I think it's because we're getting close to the season. There's just kind of starting. Colts Nation's coming out and wanting to listen, and obviously the stuff with Carson doesn't hurt. Everyone wants to hear what you have to say.
Absolutely. So guys, go subscribe to the end. Let's get them to 200 subscribers here very soon. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. Really appreciate all your support. And as always, go Colts.